I woke up in a birthing sack. Panic and choking on amniotic fluid, I clawed at the fleshy walls, fighting with all my terrified strength to free myself. With a wet, ripping sound, I was dumped onto the muddy cobblestones of the street below, twisting my ankle as I landed. Cold rain blasted my naked body clean of the sack's fluid. I tried and failed to get to my feet. The street was completely alien to me. An insane melody of architecture ranging from the modern to the prehistoric. The sky above boiled with storm clouds, illuminating my surroundings with non-stop flashes of lightning. A man walked over to me, his hair matted with filth and rain streaked down his mismatched leather clothes. He said nothing, just watched me squirm on the floor. "Please," I gasped, "help me." He answered by slamming his foot down on my face, breaking my jaw and making my vision real. He moved onto my limbs, stamping and tugging until he heard the bones snap. Crippled and naked and screaming, there was really nothing I could do to defend myself while he started to eat me alive. My introduction to hell wasn't unusual. Very few people survive their first hour, let alone their first night. When they die, they go through the same thing, emerging from new birthing sacks to yet another part of the city. Eventually, they learn to attack the first person they see, and, well, if they're lucky, they'll be able to actually kill that person. That's the one rule of hell. A strong take from the weak. And get used to the idea you might just make it through the afterlife. I'm gonna give you a helping hand. Consider this your handbook to hell, a primer on the inferno. Make no mistake though, I'm not doing this out of the goodness of my heart. When you die, you'll owe me one. Don't worry about trying to find me. I guarantee you will run into each other eventually. Eternity's a long time, so it's really a matter of when rather than if. Do as I tell you and you'll have a better chance of avoiding my own nasty introduction to the pit. Welcome to hell. Some people swear they saw light at the end of the tunnel when they died. And to my mind, those people either hallucinated or they're lying. And most of us just wake up in a birthing sack a few minutes after death. The buildings of hell are covered in the things, horrible yellow-brown pimples growing out of the brick. I've already mentioned that the first thing you need to do is claw your way out and get ready to fight. That's where the real bitch of this situation comes into play though, since, well, not everyone has the strength to break through their sack's flesh. You get the body that you had just before you died, see? So let's say you were born a cripple, or maybe you died too young or too old. Tough shit. You're going to have a rough eternity drowning in birthing fluid over and over. If you manage to break free from your sack, don't waste time moping around wondering what the fuck happened. Get on your feet and get ready to defend yourself. The chances are that the first person that you see will be very hungry. There's no plants or animals in hell, so cannibalism is your only option if you don't fancy starving to death and having to start over. Aim to kill the first person you see. It might take a few tries. Most of hell's residents have been fighting for survival a lot longer than you. They might have an armor made of tanned skin, scavenged metal and bone. They must certainly have a shiv, club, or axe. All of them will be useful to you, if you can actually take it from them. The next thing you'll want to do is find shelter. It never stops raining in hell, and pneumonia is a shitty way to die. Luckily, they will have a selection of buildings to choose from. Ever wanted to live in a rundown Victorian manor with half a roof and no furniture? How about an ancient Egyptian mud brick hovel? If people have built it, you can find a crumbling version of it in hell. Pick a building, kill any squatters that you find, and move in. The best houses are the ones with a supply of scrap metal and timber. Not only are these good for making weapons with, they're also vital for getting drinkable water. I learned the hard way that hell's rain is teeming with disease, and it has to be boiled before it's safe. So, getting a fire going is something to make a bowl with is necessary. So, we've killed our first man, found a home, the things are going well. Get that far and you're probably going to want to hang on to what you have forever. Well, you won't. Something will kill you, eventually, and you'll have to start over. My record is a year, and if you want to beat that, well, you'll have to understand hell and its citizens. The damned. The people of hell can be grouped into two categories. The first are the fresh meat, those who have just died and climbed out of a birthing sack. It's kill or be killed when it comes to fresh meat, always has been. The newly birds want clothing and tools and will kill to get a hold of them. The second category, the residents, view fresh meat as a quick and easy supply for food, leather and bone. Residents have a much easier time, that's for sure, and all of them are willing to fight to retain their status as a resident for as long as they can. Make no mistake though, residents victimize each other just as much as they prey on fresh meat. Like, if you're a woman, for instance, you better get over any hang-ups you have about rape. Women get raped in hell far more than men, and it's just a fact. If you're not one of those bodybuilders or warrior women, then do the smart thing and prostitute yourself for protection. Self-respect doesn't really keep you breathing. You remember how I said you get the body that you had just before you died, right? Well, that fact forms the core of hell society. The truth of the matter is that throughout history, it's usually been men who died in battle. And that means that, in hell, there's a lot of men with strong young bodies fit for war, don't like it, well, tough. Those are the guys calling the shots, and if you can't fight them, well, then you better just do as they tell you. If you live long enough and fight well enough, you might get invited into one of the residential tribes. These are a group of people who band together for the sake of society and numbers. Believe me, being part of a group makes things a lot easier in hell. However, keep in mind that you're only part of the tribe as long as you're a resident. Get yourself killed, and it's back to being fresh meat. Tribes offer the closest thing to a civilized society that you'll find in hell. If you're part of a tribe, you have people on your side, and you probably won't get killed unless things get rough. Doesn't sound like much, but it's about as good as it gets. My own survival record was thanks to getting into a tribe. Life was good for a while there. We had about 50 soldiers and plenty of girls. Nobody could touch us, and we were men who abided by an honor code, so the usual fear of being stabbed in the back by your friends wasn't too much of an issue. I could have spent all the rest of my eternity in a resident comfort, but hey, hell has a way of ruining good things. Human flesh and boiled rainwater doesn't exactly make for a balanced and diet meal. Sooner or later, even the strongest of residents will die of malnutrition. I did well to last a year on it, though the last few months were pure agony. If I believed in God, I'd swear that he designed hell in such a way that nobody could stay on top of the food chain for long. Anyway, moving on to the city and the wasteland. Most of the damned live in Dis, the city of hell. That's where the fresh meat is born, and considering the size of the place coupled with their short life expectancy, a lot of the people will spend eternity without ever actually setting foot outside of Dis. Take my advice, do not leave the city. Things are rough in the streets, that's true, but trust me when I say it gets a whole lot worse if you try to leave. Dis is surrounded by a wasteland called Gehenna. At a first glance, it doesn't look like much, just an empty expanse of gray stretching out into infinity. Sometimes the damned lose that fire in their belly and the will to survive, and they set off wandering into Gehenna. Most of them never come back. I made the walk myself once, a long time ago. I don't care how hard you think you are, spending enough time in hell starts to break you down. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm a good person who never deserved this. Nobody can say that and not be a liar. I'm not evil, though, or rather, I wasn't. Not until I got to hell. You murder, rape, and torture because you know they do the same to you. You're murdered, raped, and tortured because they know you'll do the same to them. Give it long enough and you just don't want to face it anymore. That's when you walk into Gehenna. The first couple of miles I walked were nothing special. The rain stopped, and after a while, the sludge beneath my feet gave way into a gray ash. I caught my first glimpse of hell's sky beyond the clouds. It was a flat gray with a white sun, completely devoid of warmth and beauty. I trudged on. While walking through Gehenna, I lost my urge to eat, drink, or sleep. My body started to waste away, but I didn't care. Even when my skin started to peel away and my bones were exposed, I didn't care. The further I walked, the hollower I became in mind, body, and soul. I don't know what would have happened if I kept going. Frankly, I don't even want to know. Some part of me still wanted to live, so I turned back. I walked for days, maybe weeks, yet when I turned around, I found Dis, only a few steps away. I stepped back into the city and my body finally fell apart. When I emerged from the birthing sack, I swore to never step foot into Gehenna again. Escaping from hell. There are ways to leave hell that should be obvious, otherwise I wouldn't be talking to you, now would I? Sometimes the living get into their heads that they want to talk to the dead, and they get their crystals and incense and spirit boards in hopes of reaching their loved ones. Most do nothing more than trick themselves into thinking that they've actually made contact. They smile or cry, convince their beloved granny is playing the harp on a cloud somewhere, before actually getting on with their lives. A few actually do have the skill to reach us, though. They can open a gate between hell and the world of the living that we perceive as a pillar of fire stretching down from the clouds. As soon as one of those pillars shows up, the damned scramble to be the first one to get there. You haven't seen the true nature of man until you've watched thousands of the damned swarming over each other, kicking, biting, and clawing to be the one who escapes. Contacting the dead always results in a bloodbath. Even the most civilized of tribes fall apart the instant it becomes clear that only one of them can leave. I've left hell twice now, left my body behind, ridden the pillar of fire all the way up into the clouds. Some people believe that you can be possessed by demons. Let me tell you something though, demons aren't real. What the living see as a demonic possession is just one of the damned testing out their new body. Let's face it, if you fought your way through hell to get back to the world of the living, you're not going to be on your best behavior for long. Sooner or later, we all take things too far. Our host dies, their family finally caves and recruit an exorcist, then we're fresh out of the birthing sack, and on to the streets again. I'm gonna go now. When you get to hell, remember my advice and that you owe me one. Maybe we can form a tribe someday. For the time being, though, I want to see what my new body can do.